281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
It is good to be back in Des Moines, folks, the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent. I'm also tempted to say the culinary, cultural, and chicken crossroad of the continent because, gosh, doesn't everybody in Des Moines own chickens? Or if you don't, I know you want to. I know you want to own them really, really badly. Hey, we're going to talk about not chickens, but other big agricultural issues. Francis Dickey is going to join us in a second. I do want to take a moment here to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, also the Iowa chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring this program. And I also want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of our conversation. And when we're done beating up on Francis, just kidding, Francis, we're going to have Mike Olvik with Megabus joining us. I'm going to tell you some fascinating stories about my 5-day trip on Megabus and get Mike's feedback. And also later in the program, Lee Kemp, New York City-based comedian, activist, who's going to join us next Sunday here in Des Moines for his first ever Iowa performance. And I'm delighted to have him join us to talk about his take on 2012 in review. But first, let's go to our phone lines and welcome Francis Dickey to the conversation. Hello, Francis.
Hello, Ed.
How are you?
Good, very good. Thank you.
How are things down in dairy country?
It's not dairy country.
Well, you're dairy country.
Very small dairy country.
Yes, I know. Well, hey, you've been tracking the Farm Bureau. I've been hearing bits and pieces of it, and what seemed to come up more often than not was the issue of milk prices. Every time you turned around, I mean, I saw Tom Vilsack, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, of course, doing an interview on CNN, and it just all seemed to focus on milk prices.
Well, there was a looming problem, is that if the Farm Bill wasn't passed, it would revert back to 1949 rules, which means that the government would have to buy dairy products to raise the price up very high. And so that didn't happen. In the final fiscal cliff agreement, the dairy program went back to what it was before.
So, and why is that? Is that something that is that relevant to every element of the Farm Bill? That if changes are not made, if action is not taken, it reverts back to a 1949 statute?
Pretty much. But, some things like corn and soybeans, they already are pretty high. Dairy is one item that if it reverted back to 49, it would really jump. The others may not jump so much.
And why is that? I mean, what that seems like Congress and our federal government are full of arcane provisions. That seems like one that is so far removed from current reality that it should have been addressed a long time ago.
Well, it does. It's hard to, as you can tell from Congress, it's hard to get anything adjusted.
Yeah, I appreciate the uncomfortable laughter, but it is so true. So
there are some other major problems created by this extension. What happened is that in this big package, the fiscal cliff package, a one-year extension of the Farm Bill was put through, but it was a disaster. It included things that should not have been in there, like the direct payments for corn and soybean production, which will cost $5 billion this year, and the Congress had already agreed, both the House and Senate, both Republicans and Democrats had agreed to take that out. And in the last minute, in the midnight deal, it got put back in again.
So wait, tell me more about this now.
These are called direct payments, and that
right.
is, farmers who have corn base, have a certain crop base on their land, which is most of the crop land in Iowa. They get paid a certain amount per acre just for growing corn and soybeans, for not doing anything else, no conservation, nothing, just growing corn and soybeans. And everybody realized that's a ridiculous thing, and finally there was some agreement to take it out. And then it was put back in at the last minute in the deal between Biden and McConnell in the last minute deal.
How long has that provision been in USDA policy?
Oh, for a long time. I can't.
Wasn't it revised in 1996? Revised meaning made worse.
That might be when it started. There are various versions of payments, and this is one that just pays directly for it. I can't tell you the date that one came in actually. And the truth is that, I don't really grow much corn and soybeans, so I'm barely affected by that.
I didn't realize you grew any at all.
Just a little organic corn and soybeans now, yeah.
And the provision applies to organic corn and soybeans as well?
Well, actually, it applies to your land base. If your farm has a base that historically was in corn and soybeans, then you have a base, and regardless of what crop you plant, you get paid this money.
Yeah, what is it? Is there a biological or agricultural logic to that provision, or is it entirely based on political clout?
It's political. And at one time, of course, when prices were low for commodity crops, they made a little more sense. But over time, the land base is concentrated into bigger and bigger farms, and the payments go mostly to the large farmers. And so that's not a very good situation. And plus, right now, anyway, the prices are really high for a lot of these commodity crops. And so, and the worst part is that society doesn't get anything back. We, as taxpayers, are paying for this, but we're not getting any conservation benefits or anything back for that.
And we do get things back on certain provisions.
Yes, and one of them, of course, that's controversial is the crop. Now it's kind of been shifted to crop insurance. That the federal government is subsidizing crop insurance, and that was why the direct payments are going to fall out. Well, now they have both of them in there, I guess.
Why can't I get them to subsidize my automobile insurance? Wouldn't that be just as logical? I don't know.
Well, the irony of subsidizing crop insurance for commodities is that it just encourages more corn and soybean production because they are the high value crops, make the most amount of money, and they're most risky because they're more risky than crops like hay crops, perennial crops.
Right.
But now when you have insurance, you can make money whether you have a crop or not, and so it encourages more growing of these risky crops that are not resilient, that are not good for the environment.
Folks, you can join the conversation here. I'm talking with Francis Dickey. He's a dairy farmer from Jefferson County, Iowa. We're talking about the Farm Bill, looking at milk prices, but at some of the other issues as well. You're welcome to join the conversation at 244-0077 or toll free 855-244-0077. So beyond the two issues, the milk price issue, and that one was addressed, and you would say favorably. The crop subsidy issue was addressed. It looked like it was going to be addressed favorably, and then the last minute, I assume the cloud of Farm Bureau prevailed, and it reverted to what had been there previously. The basic, and again,
we've got to look at how it developed because the Farm Bill is a 5-year Farm Bill, and it was worked on for about a year or more. And there was agreement. The Senate already had passed a Farm Bill that was pretty good. And the Republican-controlled House Ag Committee also passed one that was pretty good. And so it was just poised to go, but Boehner held it back. He would not let it go up for a vote.
So when you say it was passed, I mean, in the Senate, I presume it was passed with Democrat and Republican support.
Well, I don't know how the vote was, but it passed. It did. I presume there must have been some Republican. Because on the House side, it had both Democrat and Republican support to get through the Ag Committee. And so it was bipartisan support. The idea that we drop out the direct payments, that was bipartisan support. And the other thing is there are a lot of little pieces in it, like the REAP grants, which have to do with renewable energy in rural America.
Well, and also that has to do with preservation of sensitive conservation areas, wetlands and whatnot.
But that's dropped out
That was dropped out altogether.
Federal program. Now, there is a state REAP program.
Sure, but it's been underfunded since inception. It was first conceived, I think, back in the late 80s, and it has never been funded at the level the state originally committed to funding it at.
Yeah, no, that's the state REAP program.
Right.
The federal program is an rural energy.
Oh, I got you. Sorry.
Assistant program, something.
I thought it was a partner to the same. I thought the acronym was the same at the state and federal level. Silly me.
No, it's interesting. And another thing that fell out of this whole thing is a lot of little things. One is the Organic Agriculture Research Initiative, which was funded now at $20 million in the past, compared to $2 billion for conventional agriculture research. This fell out. And there's a whole list of things that fell out.
So good things that might have done more for renewable energy and for conservation ended up falling out of the bill at the last minute.
Yeah, and things like the value-added producer grants, the Rural Micro Entrepreneur Assistance Program.
So where was Tom Vilsack in all this? I would assume that he would have had more to say about that.
Well, that's a good question. But the problem is, I think it happened so fast that I don't know if he even had input in there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, certainly President Obama had to have input.
Yeah,
and if he's going to have input, you presume that his Secretary of Agriculture has input as well.
Well, you'd think so, but I know that Vilsack supported the earlier version, which was well thought out and worked out for a long time. So I give him credit for that.
So who pushed for these changes at the last minute that seemed to be benefiting big ag to the detriment of conservation, to the detriment of organics, to the detriment of renewable energy? Who pushed for those things?
It was agreement between the Republican leadership and the White House.
So you're saying Obama in the end was okay with these changes?
Well, Well, it was the White House, and there's so many pieces that who knows what pieces Obama himself saw.
Okay. But we have to presume that Tom Vilsack saw them all.
Well,
right?
Well, I would if they had 3 days of deliberation, I'd say yes. But if it happened, in 2 hours after midnight or something, then I don't know how that. Nobody seems to know how those behind closed door things work.
Well,
they probably just default on certain things. I'm not trying to apologize for them, but they default on certain things and let things kind of fall by the wayside. I always hold that farm policy is mostly a matter of the end outcome of sort of the everybody fighting, and what drops out at the end is what comes through.
Well, Francis, I'm going to share some secret wisdom with you. Okay, you and my entire audience. Okay, I know how that works. And it's a 5-letter word, and it starts with an M. It's money. Somehow behind the scenes, money came up. Money as an element of campaigns. Money in terms of its lobbying clout. Somehow money got involved in this conversation, and that's why. I would bet small amounts of money that large amounts of money came to play in the closing days of these conversations in this short 3-day window. And had some significant influence on the final outcome.
Yeah, I don't doubt that's the case. But a lot of things fell by default. For example, the Conservation Reserve or Conservation Stewardship Program that's been supported widely, and it was overlooked, and it wasn't even talked about, and it was even overlooked in the early deliberations by the.
Okay, so that wasn't even in the earlier bill. And what specifically would that have done?
Well, the Conservation Stewardship Program pays farmers for adopting stewardship practices, which, many people argue is the way we should. If we're going to do any kind of subsidy for agriculture, we should get a payback on conservation.
Sure. So are they paid based on some
on the practices? Each practice has a certain cost share or more of an incentive payment.
And we're not talking about. Are we talking about grass waterways or terracing or buffer strips?
Each farm has a plan, and it could include things like grass waterways, or it could include rotations. There's a lot of things that can be chosen.
Crop rotation, like corn, beans, or something more than that.
Or resource-conserving crop rotation that would include things like small grains, hay, and so on. That would help conserve the soil. So I guess the big point is that the Conservation Stewardship Program would reward farmers for doing good conservation, whereas the direct payments that were funded, they are just paid no matter what you do. You can do anything you want, and you're paid that. Whereas, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what happens next? Right now, the farm bill, or a 1-year extension of it with these changed provisions, has been included in the fiscal cliff bill. So what happens next?
Well, it's kind of like starting from ground zero again. They're going to have to start and debate a farm bill again. They have now a year to do that.
Okay.
And there was other things that happened along with that. One is that the $10 million estate tax exemption was put in, which is very high, and that affects agriculture because that helps concentrate agricultural land and more and more into fewer and fewer hands. And it shouldn't be so high. $10 million exemption for estate tax. I'm sure you're very familiar with that.
Oh, sure, very much so. And there's an estate tax at the state level as well. And there are exclusions for direct family members, spouse, sons, daughters. I think even some broader extensions than that. But yeah, it's you're right. It has helped. And actually, the percentage of farmers. When Iowa passed its tax break for estates, it affected 2%. 2% of the farmers were affected.
The industrial ag people like to claim otherwise. They make it sound like everybody's going to go bankrupt, and it only affects a small number of farms.
Yeah. Actually, that was something that back when Tom Vilsack was a state senator, he and I agreed on. We were a couple of the only votes that didn't want to see that change to the estate tax.
Huh.
So for what that's worth. Okay, Francis, again, thank you so much for joining us. Let me ask you one more quick question. Say the bill had not been changed as it was and milk prices had gone up. Would that have affected milk from organic dairies like yourself, small-scale dairies, or would it have only affected milk from larger firms?
From the conventional. In my case, I process on the farm. I market it locally. I never change my prices based upon the fluctuating prices.
So it actually would have helped you.
Well,
I mean, in theory, it would have made organic milk more competitive with...
In theory, yes.
Okay, interesting. Something to think about, for what that's worth. Francis, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
Folks, I want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of our program. We've been talking about renewable fuels and whatnot. Hey, renewable fuels are great, but you can do a lot in your own home. Invite Tim to come over and give you an energy audit. It costs you nothing. He's at 802-2801. Tim Reynolds, or you can also reach him online, Tim Reynolds at ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com. I guess just talked with a friend of mine. He's saved this friend of mine a bunch of energy. And with the rebates that come with some of the work Tim did, a bunch of money as well. So, folks, give him a shout. Thank him for supporting the Fallon Forum. We'll be back in a few minutes. Mike Alvik is going to join us next. Mike Alvik is with Megabus. I'm going to talk a little bit about my trip from Des Moines to Florida, a 5-day odyssey on Megabus. And I also want to point out, I want to thank, Webcast One Live for hosting this show in their studio in the Skywalk. And the ads you're about to hear in the next little break are to help promote Webcast One Live.
Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. That's Mr. Baber's Neighbors, and I want to thank Brother Trucker for kicking off the show with their tune Downtown. I want to thank Andy Fleming with Brother Trucker for being part of the upcoming Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show this coming Sunday. I hope you'll come, folks. It's going to be at House of Bricks over at East 5th and Grand in the East Village. Tickets are only $10, and I'm told by my friends in the comedy world that for $10, you normally won't get to see a national comedian of such caliber as Lee Camp. But Lee Camp's coming all the way from New York to join us. His first ever performance here in Iowa. Also performing, we've got Colin Ryan, a little bit of Irish humor there, Dan Umtham, and also Scott Vermulm. So it'll be a great show. That's this coming Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. at House of Bricks. You can get tickets online at tickly.co, or you can get them at the door. $10 either way. And do spread the word. I would love to have a great turnout. Again, it's Lee's combination of comedy and activism are pretty powerful. And I do need to say, too, that this is a fundraiser to help keep me out of the big house. I'm not going to go to the big house, but I am fighting against the lawsuit filed by Leonard Boswell against me. I understand that I'm the only resident of Iowa ever sued by a congressman over slander, so I'm wearing that badge of honor quite proudly. Anyway, come, folks, if you can. It should be a good evening. And speaking of good times, folks, my megabus trip, that was quite an experience. 5 days from Des Moines down to Florida. I took my time. It could have gone a little faster, but I had a great time. And I want to invite Mike Olvig with Megabus on the program again with me. Mike joined us back in December before I started my trip. He's with us again. Mike, welcome to the show. Mike, are you there? Hello, Mike. Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now just fine.
Yeah, welcome back. It sounds like the trip went well.
It went well. I came back a little early, so I skipped a bit of the intended itinerary. But I tell you, it was good. Let me tell you one of my most fascinating experiences, just so you can get a laugh out of it and maybe share your input. I mean, and I had a lot of really interesting experiences, some really interesting people. But from Atlanta to Jacksonville, I sat next to a 93-year-old woman from Chattanooga, a gal named Patty. And she was articulate, lively. I mean, when the bus would stop, she'd get off and she'd wander off on her own, come back. And she married a guy 20 years older than her who served in World War I. And so she was telling me stories of World War I. I felt like I was listening to somebody who had actually been in the war, because these stories were told to her by her husband. I felt like I'd taken a step back in time. Fascinating.
We the people who ride Megabus, we found through our research, cover all age ranges. Even though the majority of our customers we call young professionals, between 18 and 39 years old, about 50-50 men and women, we get a tremendous number of seniors. we're starting to see more and more families coming on board the megabuses because they're comparing them. They're comparing the cost of megabus and the serenity of that trip with what it's like to drive nowadays. And we're starting, and even with kids involved, and we're seeing more and more families on megabus, as well as a lot of seniors. So I'm not surprised that she was on the bus.
Yeah, the demographics are interesting. Actually, at different stretches, it was a different situation. When I boarded in Iowa City for Chicago, there were about 50 people waiting. I was the only one over the age of 25. Now, when I boarded in Chicago for Memphis, there were also about 50 people standing waiting for the bus. I was the only one who wasn't African American.
We reflect the community, I tell you.
I think
it is across the board. It is amazing to see how Americans have just adopted the whole megabus.com way to travel. It's as if we look at ourselves as like the 21st century version of bus transportation in America today, where primarily we're nonstop services. Very often we'll make a stop or two, but mostly we're express with the free Wi-Fi and power outlets, and of course those double-decker buses, all with seat belts and air conditioning and heated and wheelchair accessible, all those kind of things. People suddenly realize they can get a whole lot more for their money when they travel by bus in the USA, at least nowadays.
Well, and the double-decker bus is a bit nostalgic for me because I spent time in Ireland as a kid, and I remember going to Dublin for the first time at age 8, and whoa, double-decker buses. I mean, we had a blast with that. I remember back then you would put a 3-penny piece in the change machine. It had a little rabbit on it, and you'd go sit up there on the top of the bus, and you could see Dublin from way the heck up on this bus. So yeah, there's a little nostalgia for me there. And I did ride up on top once, but I actually preferred to be down below just because I like the table set, the place where you can sit with 4 people.
Right,
with a table
across
in the
from
middle.
each other. Right, yeah.
Yeah. But when I was sitting next to this gal, Patty, let me tell you a little more. She's just a hilarious story, Mike. She said to me at one point, "So do you believe in guardian angels?" And I said, well, I didn't really know what to say to that. But she proceeded to tell me a fascinating story of back in 1955. Her son was 7 or 8, and she was sitting alone in her home, all quiet, all peaceful, and suddenly there was a guy sitting in front of her in black with a tall hat on. And he just sat there, and she froze. She couldn't move. She was like fixed to her chair, and she thinks this was her son's guardian angel coming in to protect her from getting angry at him when he came in, bounced the ball, and broke the chandelier. So she's telling me this story.
Did she know you had a radio program, Ed?
She didn't, and I did give her a card. At the end, I gave her a card, and I haven't heard back from her. So she also told me that she also asked me if I sang, and I said, well, actually, I do sing. And she asked me if I'd sing her a Christmas carol. I said, well, let me wait till we get to Jacksonville. And so just outside of Jacksonville, we're just coming in. I break into Silent Night, and a few other people sing along near us. But she's not happy with Silent Night. She wants something more upbeat. So she breaks into Santa Claus is Coming to Town and stands up and kind of leads the bus in singing Santa Claus is Coming to Town as we land in Jacksonville.
Sounds like a bunch of kids on the way to camp.
She was a stid. Oh, yeah, well, it was a bit like that. The one thing, again, all these very positive qualities, but she also assured me that she was disappointed that Americans had elected a foreign-born president. And I said, you mean Obama? She says, yes. I said, you mean he's from Kenya? She said, no, Egypt. I don't know how she got the fact that he was from Egypt, but...
Wow.
Anyway, I tell you meet some characters on that bus.
See, if you don't have your own laptop, iPad, or iPod to use the free Wi-Fi, you'll know you'll either be able to sleep or have some fascinating conversation. I know when I took our first bus out of Memphis, when we were started service to Atlanta last year, I was down in Memphis to meet and greet customers the first day and talk with some press.
Nice.
I'm on the bus. Now, we're riding from Memphis to Montgomery to Alabama, and I'm sitting next to a fellow, looked like about my age. Come to find out, he was one of the largest travel agents in Memphis. And I used to work for TWA in another life. And we started reminiscing about the old days in travel and what it used to be like when people traveled on airlines and used to wear a little corsage and have a suit and a tie. And we talked our way all the way up to Atlanta. So you never know when you're going to meet somebody who's kind of fascinating on our buses.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah, and there were plenty of people I met who were interesting. That's probably the most fascinating story. Maybe one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. But she certainly wasn't the only one that made my journey a little bit more interesting.
You know, Ed, to back up what you're saying, about the popularity of Megabuses services, there was a report issued just yesterday and Sunday at the American Bus Association meeting in Charlotte by the the Chaddick Institute, who is with DePaul University in Chicago, Professor Joe Schweiderman, who studies the transportation industry in this country, puts out an annual report of the state of the industry. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he noticed this past year in that city-to-city bus service, like Megabus, grew about 7.5% around the United States, while airline travel and automobile travel only grew about 1.5%, and rail travel only grew about 3%.
Yeah, and personally, I'd love to see rail travel grow more, but we're going to need a better investment in
right.
in rail
but
service.
It is experiencing some growth on the Northeast Corridor, for instance. Amtrak is experiencing exceptional growth. That's in addition to all of the additional bus services that you're starting to see now, and the state of the art kind of a service that we're putting out. Megabus grew about 30% last year.
Yeah, and I
astounding.
think bus and train can work really, really well together, especially if you're taking a bus for a short stint. And you have
we think so too.
Yeah.
We think, and the consumers keep coming back. What we found is once they experienced Megabus the first time, if they hadn't taken a bus trip for years, a lot of people thought it was not going to be a pleasant experience, like they were going to sit next to somebody with a chicken in their lap.
Hey, what's wrong with chickens, Mike?
Well, a lot of folks have a problem with that.
I raised them. I'm going to take that personally.
My sister, I love chickens, but there are some people not on a bus.
Okay, I won't bring my chicken on the bus next time.
When they go on the Megabus, though, they are so surprised, I guess the best word, that they wound up becoming frequent customers, and they wind up spreading the word. That is the biggest way people learn about Megabus, even with all the advertising and whatever that we do. It's through word of mouth, and in part, actually, that's why we recently started up services back out in California and Nevada just in November. We're now going out of 8 cities in California and Nevada, including Las Vegas and Sparks, which is near Reno, and it's partly because people who had heard about our services around the country, relatives and friends and family had taken Megabus, but yet we weren't out in California. They said they kept sending us emails and tweeting us and so forth saying, have you thought about coming back out here? And that led to our reevaluating that service, and we reintroduced it just the end of November.
Yeah. And I think especially in my situation here in Des Moines, a lot of people from Des Moines go to Chicago. And I've got a doctor friend who could well afford to fly, but he was talking with me about it, and just getting his impressions from my experience. And he said, I'm going to talk with a colleague of mine. We're going to go down to Chicago next month for some medical conference, and with a 6-hour trip, you really can't beat that. You can do a little bit better than that by car, but then you get into traffic in the Chicago suburbs. You got to park. You pay for parking. You get all the hassles around that.
And the gas and the wear and tear, and look at the stress you put up with driving. Here you are on the bus, you can actually unwind. The people actually have started to use the word, it was serene. How about that? Isn't that wonderful?
That's nice, yeah.
And this professor was saying, this is a professor now who was saying that when he interviewed people and his staff interviewed people, they were starting to say it's now cool to take a bus in America when you ride on services like Megabus. When have you ever heard the word cool and bus in the same sentence?
Not for a while.
Yeah, and so we're starting to see a real change in people's feelings. While we're sitting here, I just pulled up on our website. We just opened up sales on Megabus to the end of April 30th. So if you're traveling between now and the end of April, you can book a seat. And I picked a date randomly in March, say March 19th. If you were going from Des Moines to Chicago on both our departures that day, you can, on one of the departures that day, you can still get seats for $1.
Wow.
On the other departure, it's now $15.
Yeah.
And that's because the $1 seats have been sold out.
Well, and you get to hang out and check out the scenery and enjoy some interesting conversations like with Patty from Chattanooga. Mike, my only piece of constructive criticism is the Wi-Fi situation.
Right.
Actually, from Des Moines to Iowa City, it worked perfectly. Iowa City to Chicago, about half the time. After that, I had a lot of trouble with it, and I don't know whether that was unique to that particular day or whatnot. But it was hard to get reliable service after Chicago.
I'm surprised because in the early days, when we started Megabus just 7 years ago out of Chicago, actually, the system we had installed wasn't able to provide the bandwidth and wasn't able to provide all of the demands that we found were being put on us by the customers themselves. So we have since, back 2 years ago, upgraded the entire Wi-Fi system. So that's a surprise. That may have been an anomaly.
It might have been,
We track that through, we now have close to, I think it's 89,000 Facebook fans, which I'm still stunned at. I love that. And about 18,000 Twitter followers, and they're very open and talk to us about things like that. We track their response for those kind of things, and we haven't had a real problem.
Good.
I'd say the past year and a half, as we did in our earlier years. So I think you may have hit some sort of an anomaly on that.
I may have, yes. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us again. Again, it was a great trip. Folks know that I'm a big believer in alternative types of transportation. We're going to talk later this week with Steve Falk with the Environmental Law and Policy Center about Amtrak and about the passenger rail study that's going to link Chicago with the Quad Cities and then through Des Moines on to Council Bluffs and Omaha. But again, a healthy transportation system is a diverse one that accommodates bicycles, that accommodates pedestrians, that accommodates trains and buses. And I really want to commend you, Mike, and Megabus for providing, for making it cool to be on the bus again. It has not been cool for a while.
And go from Des Moines to Chicago, Iowa City, as well as Omaha. You're right, and we're delighted by the reception of your listeners. We appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
All right, Mike. Take care.
Thank you so much, and visit us again.
I shall, and I know a bunch of my audience will as well. I've already got a couple physicians who are again planning on taking a ride on Megabus to Chicago.
Before we go, I just thought of something. One piece of advice to your listeners: if they want to get the inside scoop on the promotions that come out or get involved in some fun activities, they ought to sign up as a Facebook fan on Megabus. For instance, on December 5th, we announced that we're giving away 200,000 free seats if you travel between January 9th and February 28th. And if you were a Facebook fan, you would have gotten the first announcement of that before the general public. So become a Megabus Facebook fan. Those kind of things will be coming throughout the year.
Cool. Good to know. Mike, thanks again.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering for helping to sponsor this segment of our show. It is good to be back in Des Moines for a lot of reasons, and one is I have not dined at Tally's for a while. Great stuff. Very creative menu. The chef does a fantastic job. The chefs, I should say. And owner Robert Sanda takes personal pride in the effort that he puts into a great restaurant. Also a catering service, and also, of course, they've got a bar as well. So check them out, folks, at Beaver and Urbandale Ave in downtown Beaverdale. That's Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering. We'll be back in a few minutes with Lee Camp joining us on the phone from New York City. Lee's going to have his first ever performance here in Des Moines, Iowa, coming up this Sunday. We'll talk with Lee about his take on the highlights of 2012.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. I want to tell you about saving energy and saving money. Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. And Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Now, I had Tim over for an audit last month, and I was amazed, I tell you, at how much energy was going through the roof, out the windows, the back door. You get it. So before the cold winds of winter really blow hard, give Tim a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizzo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito, online fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano, and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, we have no idea why that Pumptown recording of Bicycle suddenly sounds so horrible. Maybe my bike did something to screw it up. Well, my bike is glaring at me. All right, we're not even going to go there. Folks, Lee Camp's going to join us. I'm delighted to have him on the program. I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of the show. I want to remind you about the Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show this coming weekend. And if you can't make that, you can still donate to help keep me out of the big house. Because, I really don't want to go there. The food sucks. The beds are way too small, and the Wi-Fi is horribly unreliable. So do not let them send me to the big house, please. Tell Congressman Boswell, or as I prefer to say, former Congressman Boswell, that just dropped the lawsuit. But in lieu of that, I got legal expenses. So if you can't make the comedy show, go to my website, click on support, and do your little part to help me fund the lawsuit I need to defend myself in. And I want to thank a couple people who wrote very nice notes along with donations. One fellow who sent $50 wrote, I am kind of tapped out by the latest political campaigns, but I wanted to send along something to help out in the defense project. Hope it goes well and successfully, or even better, dropped by Boswell. And thanks for keeping them honest, or at minimum, engaging them in the effort. Bill and Katie write, a very lovely holiday season to you. Thank you for thanks for your contribution on a number of causes. I am a big fan. Please find enclosed a check for $10 to assist with your legal defense fund. And if you don't need it for that, please use it for lunch at Gateway Market or for chicken feed or seeds for your garden next year. How sweet was that? Anyway, folks, thank you everyone who has already made a contribution. And again, you really want to come to this show. It's going to be great. Lee Camp is, again, one of the funniest guys I know, who also has some of the most astute commentary. And as we welcome him to the show here, we're going to play a brief segment of one of his most recent clips looking back at 2012.
2012 was a huge year for the slow but evident global awakening, as alternative media is showing people just how our corrupt world works. Julian Assange and Bradley Manning continued to sit in jail cells or similar because of their efforts to reveal the truth. Pussy Riot joined them, and Pussy Riot didn't just show everyone how welcome free speech is in Russia, but they also succeeded in getting every major news outlet to say the phrase Pussy Riot. Some networks tried to use euphemisms, but calling the band Feminine Flower Ruckus just doesn't have the same ring. Speaking
Feminine Flower Ruckus. Lee, welcome to the show, Lee.
Yes, Feminine Flower Ruckus. That's right.
Did you come up with that one on your own?
I did indeed. Thank you very much.
Well, it might catch on. If Pussy Riot doesn't change its name, keep your eyes open for some other band to use that as their moniker.
I hope so. Any day now.
So, hey, 2012, what do you think? Good year, bad year? Interesting year at any rate.
You know what? I was thinking good riddance when it finally ended, but then in the first, it's been 4 days, we've got re-signing of indefinite detention, and, the torture chief is going to be CIA director, so I started thinking maybe we should go back to 2012.
Well, we've also got the fiscal cliff agreement that really just pushes us down one notch, but the cliff remains. We've got, as my first guest talked about, a farm bill that is giving corporate agriculture every little tidbit it wants. So more of the same.
Yeah, a lot of more of the same. I'm thinking that Congress does less damage when they're on vacation, so the holiday vacation was kind of nice. And the number of corporate giveaways in the fiscal cliff deal are kind of insane, too. You know, millions of dollars for NASCAR and all kinds of stuff.
Millions of dollars for NASCAR?
Yeah.
I missed that one.
For auto sports, yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, there's a great article by Matt Stoller if you want to look it up. I think Alternet also picked it up. But you know, they just hide these things in the bill so that they can get, you know, it's pork.
I know Matt actually pretty well. Matt wrote a lot about my campaign when I was challenging Boswell. I should probably let him know about the comedy show coming up this weekend and the lawsuit that we're dealing with.
You should. Maybe write something.
Yeah.
Me and Matt go way back. He does great stuff.
Good. So, yeah, I mean, the fiscal cliff itself, you know, I was on vacation for most of that debate, but I tried to pay a little attention, but then I would throw up in my mouth a little bit and move on to actually enjoying vacation again. I mean, it just seemed like the conversations that we should have been having weren't being had.
Yeah, it's really kind of sad that the mainstream media just loves a countdown and they love to get people scared and rather than having the conversations we should have had about, you know, the wealth of this country being amassed in the very, very top, instead we're just, you know, following the horse race of will it get passed? I don't know. Final meetings. Oh, Joe Biden showed up. You know, like watching the Avengers or something.
Superhero Joe Biden shows up. Yeah, I don't know what's it going to take to fix it, Lee. What's it going to take to fix Congress to fix Washington? I mean, Occupy tried.
I proposed a new idea on Twitter the other day, replacing all of Congress with alcoholic chimpanzees, and most people agreed that it wouldn't be much different, but it might smell a little better.
Well, now what? Now, Lee, why limit it to chimpanzees? You got anything against bonobos, orangutans? What about lemurs? I mean, come on.
No.
A little diversity. I'm not
racist or speciest. I'll take any type of monkey.
Providing they're drunken.
And providing they're alcoholic. Well, it's just because I didn't want to get too far from Congress. Okay. You know, I was afraid you put a sober chimpanzee up against a congressman, and that's an easy race for the chimp. So.
Well, you know, Michael Moore did run a ficus for Congress, so there is a precedent for running other species against sitting members of Congress.
Well, you know, that may be plants' only hope of surviving with the fracking and the oil and the gas and everything that's going on. I think that plants may have to start running for Congress, or at least paying some lobbyists.
Now, I know you've been very involved with the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Yeah, I've tried to be as much as I can to promote it and talk about it.
And I know a lot of us had a lot of enthusiasm for where that movement might be heading, and it seems to have lost steam. What's your sense of the status of the movement right now? I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that a movement like that is needed. I mean, the problems we're talking about aren't going away, and those are the very problems that the Occupy movement was addressing. But I mean, what do we do to try to rekindle some sense of urgency about fixing the malaise in Washington and on Wall Street?
I mean, my opinion, and I could be wrong, is that the idea of occupying was a tactic, and the tactic is done, so you're not seeing people in tents on the streets as much anymore, but the activists that it turned on, the people that were turned on by the protest, as far as I can tell, haven't gone away. We're all still here. We're very active online. It started a whole online activist base that I think hasn't gone away either. And then you have things like Occupy Sandy and Occupy Foreclosures, and Strike Debt has done amazing stuff and has raised enough money to cancel $10 million of debt against people. And so I think it's Occupy, rather than being this big grand show, has turned into more of this bubbling activism that I think is still very important and can furthermore continue to be that way until something larger does pop up again, you know?
Yeah. Well, one can hope. But I think you're right. It's easy to get charged by the enthusiasm and the energy of something of a protest, but to go back and do the hard work of day-to-day organizing, of building coalitions, of pushing for legislation, of running campaigns. I mean, I think to me that's a big part of what should happen. You know, something else you said in your most recent Moment of Clarity video You were pointing out how the Democrats and Republicans pretty much found a way to exclude all alternative voices. I mean, even Ron Paul, who arguably, was in a three-way tie for first here in Iowa, was pretty much excluded from the conversation once the campaign moved on from here. And you pointed out that Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, was actually arrested for trying to participate in a debate.
Yeah, she went to the second debate. She and her vice presidential candidate are arrested, chained to a chair in a room with an armed guard for 8 hours during the course of the debate. I mean, that's how we treat third-party candidates here. And then Ron Paul, beyond just being ignored by the media, the numbers in some of these caucuses were just flat out rigged. Like it was really ugly what was going on, and so he was pushed out in more than one way. And I think that you're absolutely right that any kind of third voice, even if they claim to be Republican, are sidelined and pushed out of the. You have to play this two-party plutocracy system, or you're certainly not welcome.
Yeah. Well, and again, to change that is going to take work, and I think work from the bottom up. That's my concern, is that too many people involved with third parties believe they just can run folks for president or U.S. Senate or governor without having laid the foundation for truly building an alternative political force.
Right. No, you're right. A lot of this work, whether it's with Occupy or with a third party, is boring work that needs to be done on a local level. You're absolutely right.
Well, Lee, we are excited as all heck about having you come to Des Moines next weekend.
I can't wait. It'll be my first real show there. I've done colleges and things, but those are kind of different. But this will be my first real show there. I'm really excited. I'm excited to help out your legal fund, and we can see if we can just have a great time and have some hardcore left-wing pissed-off laughter.
Well, I think you're going to like some of the other local comedians that are participating as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. To meet the local guys. Yeah.
Anyway, safe travels getting here. I'm kind of under the impression that once you come to Des Moines, which is, as you might know, the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent, you probably won't want to leave. You probably want to stay here. So we'll find a way to accommodate you if you do.
They call it the Paris of Iowa.
Well, well, Des Moines, it is French, It is French.
It is French.
Yes.
I definitely can't wait. And if anybody wants to check out if they enjoy my comedy, they can just go to leecamp.net. I'm actually giving away my older comedy album for free download at leecamp.net for a few more days. And people can check out my comedy, see if they like it, and then come to the show. Sounds good. Lee, thanks so much for joining us. Folks, stick around tomorrow. We've got let's see, what do we got tomorrow? Brooke Howard, a local artist, is joining us. We're going to talk about the art scene from a young person's point of view. Also, Zach Bales-Henry, another young fellow involved with real estate. We're going to get his take on housing and politics. On Wednesday, we're going to talk with Kramer McLucky with Iowa Public Interest Research Group about the rally to reclaim democracy at the Iowa State House. And local author Millie Coles is joining us to talk about a book she wrote in response to her, 6 years ago, her son died of cancer. Then Steve Falk with the Environmental Law and Policy Center. We're going to talk about passenger rail. And then from California, Dr. Karen Hufford joins us. We're going to talk with her about legal abuse syndrome. And then locally, David Drake, a local psychiatrist, is going to join us to talk about obesity and what we can do to move toward a healthier new year. And then on Friday, Dr. Charles Goldman and I talk about gun control and the death penalty and how those issues might rear their ugly heads at the State House this coming year. Again, I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gateway is our neighborhood grocery store at Woodland and 20th in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. Again, not just a great grocery store, but a cafe as well, open for breakfast, lunch, and supper, also for catering services. So check them out, folks. That's Gateway Market at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood of downtown Des Moines. Again, folks, stick around for Bradshaw. Thanks to Webcast One Live for hosting the show, for sponsoring the studio for the show, and for my wonderful producer, Maddie Arrington. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.